What the heck is multi-generational housing and why are we seeing it on the rise? Stick with me.
You better get fired up.
Yeah, so this one's interesting. Multi-generational housing, it obviously makes sense, but I never really heard about it before. And this actually came up from one of my staff members who lives in the Philippines in a multi-generational home. And she said, "Did you know that it's an increasing trend in America?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I didn't know that. I don't even know what it is." So multi-generational housing is where you have multi-generations living in a home. So maybe I take my mom in, or I go live with my mom, or whatever it is, but you've got multiple generations living under one roof. And it is on the rise, and it has been for several years. I'm going to show you a graphic here shortly that'll show you the rise. Now, it's been a little bit more dramatic of a rise in the last handful of years, and I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out why, right? Prices have gone up a lot, rates have gone up, and not just the prices of homes, but the prices of everything have skyrocketed. I think it was an 8-9% increase in inflation in, was it 2021? And then in 2022, we saw another couple percentage points. 2023, it was another. It's been 3 to 4% ever since then, every single year. So we're seeing a huge boost in what we're spending on groceries, on gas, on everyday items. And because our wallets are tighter, on average, you're seeing that group of people who could barely afford to get into a home, they're no longer able to get into a home unless they go live with somebody in their family, right? So you're seeing a lot of kids with parents move in, grandparents moving in with their kids and their grandkids, and it's to save money. And there's silver linings to it, and there's things that are unfortunate about it. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to drive the data here and show you guys kind of what's happening. So that's what a multi-generational home is. That's why I think we're seeing it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you one article that I found. And this is Pew Research. Okay, so this graphic that you can see right now, it's the U.S. population in generational households, and it shows since 1971. Now you'll see on the bottom, there's one bar at 1971, one at 81, one at 91, and then all of a sudden in 2001 we got one every year, right? That's because they used to pull these numbers once a decade. Now we can see exactly where we're at. So you can see that this number has gone up ever since. And right now we're kind of in that mid to upper teens range of people who are living in multi-generational homes. That is interesting. It's interesting. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just an interesting thing. I would not have guessed that. But I think that when we're looking at difficult times financially and the desire to get into a home, because obviously it makes sense financially to not rent, not just blow all that money, actually take on the appreciation that you're getting in your home, actually take on the benefit of being able to pay down a mortgage and now you've got built-in equity, actually being able to take advantage of all the tax benefits, actually being able to leverage that into a home equity line of credit or another loan or anything that you want to do. All of those benefits of being a homeowner are incredibly valuable, and you want to take advantage of it. But if you can't afford it, what do? I'll tell you, one of the toughest conversations I have with buyers is when they'll give me criteria and they'll say, "Joe, we've got to be in Port St. Lucie. We got to have a pool. We've got to have 4 bedrooms. It's got to be at least 2,000 square feet outside of an HOA, and it's got to be at 330." And I'll go, there are 0 options available. And they're like, "So what do we do? What's the next step?" Like, we got to loosen up on something. We either got to look outside of Port St. Lucie, or we got to look at 3 beds, or we got to get rid of the pool, or we got to go on an HOA. Maybe the HOA has a pool, right? Or we've got to increase our price. We got to do something. But with the options you're giving me right now, or with the criteria you're giving me now, there are 0 options. And sometimes that conversation, like, we're talking about a home with a pool and, no HOA and everything else. Sometimes that option is so far off that I'll say you either need to move to Okeechobee, maybe live in a trailer home, or you need to move out of state, or you need to take on a roommate. And all of those things are met with disdain, understandable disdain. And I get it. I completely get it. And I don't say it quite as bluntly and quickly as I'm saying it to you right now. This is a long conversation. There's a lot of rapport building. I've got to build trust with them. I got to build confidence with them. And that's when I share with them, like, listen, I'm looking at you as my daughter, as my mother. This just financially might not work out. And if you don't want to move to Okeechobee, if you don't want to move out of state, and you don't have the ability to, change your price point, your only other option other than homelessness might be to take on a roommate. And I'm aware that sucks. And I'm aware that in America, we have been so blessed to be able to experience as essentially a 30-plus-year-old American. Not a lot of people have had to, some have chosen to, have had to have roommates. And that's an amazing life because it is not that way in every single country around the world. But now that blessing is dwindling with prices going up, inflation going up. And again, while that is a very challenging conversation and nobody wants to take on, well, I shouldn't say nobody, a lot of people don't want to take on roommates. It is nice when you can stay with family. It is nice when you have the relationship with your family to be able to do that. It is nice that you have an option that allows you to live in a home, take on all those benefits that I had talked about, and you can actually afford it. Emmett Dempsey here's got a comment. Great lender here in the Treasure Coast says, that's what I have in PGA Village. My wife's parents and aunt live in the guest house. We got super lucky in 2018 to find it. I appreciate you sharing that. And that's a pretty, I don't want to say common, but I'll say 3-4 times a year, I get people who say, hey, I want a house that's got a separate mother-in-law apartment with its own like kitchen and bathroom and everything. And I can just kind of check in on mom or dad or whoever it is. That is not an easy thing to find. It's not. I think anytime that I've looked that up, forget price, just Port St. Lucie has a fully functional, separate mother-in-law apartment on the same property. You're probably looking at 6 to 8 options, maybe, out of over 2,000 residential options on the Port St. Lucie market. And out of those 6 to 8, I would be willing to guess that 0 or 1 are under 500 grand. They probably start around 600 grand. They're expensive. It's an entirely different, it's not like saying, well, we just added a room and maybe that room is like a 15 by, I don't even know, 15. So it's 225 square feet. Well, because it's got to have a kitchen too and a bathroom. So it'd be bigger than that. Maybe it's 300 square feet. So you're thinking, okay, it's going to be an extra 50, 60 grand. No, because you're not adding on that affordable empty square footage. And when I say empty square footage, I'm talking about a bedroom, a dining room, a living room. That's empty square footage. It's 4 walls. Sometimes it's not even 4 walls if it's an open layout, a ceiling on a floor, and that's it. When you're looking at bathrooms and kitchens, you've got to start adding toilets, vanities, showers, bathtubs, sinks, refrigerators, stoves, ovens, dishwashers, microwaves, cabinets, countertops. Like it is a much more expensive price per square foot, right? So it gets considerably more expensive. And then you add in the fact that, and I'm making this up, and I'm guessing it's 6 to 8. It might not even be that many out of over 2,000. That's this much supply with this much demand. So it can raise the price as well. So that is not impossible, but it's challenging. But you can see in Emmett's comment, he said, we got super lucky to find it. It's not easy to find. More common, we're seeing 3 and 4 bed, just normal single family homes, maybe in that 350 to 400 price point. If you get multiple people, maybe you can go up to 450. That's what most typical incomes in this area can afford when they're looking at multi-generational housing. And then one person, usually the person who puts the big down payment down, or the mom, or whatever it is, gets the master, and then whoever else gets 1 or 2 of the other bedrooms, and you share the kitchen, you share the living room. And I'll say this too, and I'm not trying to justify this. I mean, I don't really have a dog in the fight. It doesn't matter to me, but I am a fan of being hyper aware that living in America, we're incredibly blessed. We've got an economy that the world has never seen. We're living in a time that the world's never seen. I mean, as an average American, you're living better than most kings and queens lived 400 years ago. You have air conditioning right there alone. You're living a pretty amazing life, right? All the different things that we have, the internet, access to healthcare and food and clean water, and you're not being murdered with swords. Like it's a whole different world right now. And having, just lived through war, this isn't as earth-shattering, heartbreaking to me as it is to other people. To me, if you just can't afford it and you get to move in with mom and dad or your kids or whatever, it's not the end of the world. In a lot of other countries, that's just typical. And they don't do it because they're poor. They do it because that's just the culture is, hey, we're a family, we live together. And I'm not saying we got to buy into that. And I'm not saying you can't be sad about being in that situation. I'm just saying we have a choice on how we view these different things. And if we change the story in our head from, woe is me, I'm not well off enough to purchase a home at $350,000-$400,000 here in South Florida. I got to live with my parents. I got to live with my kids. That's so sad. It is, if that's the story you tell yourself. But if you decide to tell yourself the story of, hey, you know what? I get to live in a much more affordable situation. It's going to be half the cost it would otherwise be. I'm saving a heck of a lot more. Maybe I'll be able to retire sooner. I'm helping the person who's with me, who I love and trust, and I get to spend more time with family members. You get to pick your story, right? And I think that's pretty cool. And whatever story you create, you're going to buy into. I can tell you, my staff member from the Philippines loves living with her family, loves her family, looks at her family differently than a lot of people here in America do, does not look at it like it is a crutch or a woe is me situation. It's a beautiful thing. So anyway, there you guys go. There's a little bit of a trend we're seeing in multi-generational housing. Again, if anybody's tight, it's another great option to consider along with some of the others that I mentioned. But I appreciate you joining me. We're here every single Monday for What's Hot, where we talk about what's hot in the real estate market today. If you've got a topic you'd like me to touch on, feel free to DM it to me or send it to me in the comments. Guys, have a wonderful day.